Somebody pointed out the sound. Yeah, I don't know what the sound is. I feel like I hear that from Boxer, so that's why I do it. I'm a little early. I said 9:15. I was ready. I was ready to go. This isn't for Lakers beating the Wizards. It's more for Lakers going 5-1 on the road trip. What's going on, Laker fans? Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. We got a lot to get into tonight. Lakers over the Wizards. 125-120, the final score. We got to spend some time talking about the actual win today. Not exactly the perfect win. Not exactly what you want to see from the Lakers, but it's a W. I'm honestly, I'm not going to be too worried about what happened there towards the end or Washington, the Wizards making a game in the fourth quarter. So I want to talk about that. I want to spend some time talking about just the road trip in general, the 5-1 road trip for the Lakers. They've won 8 of their last 9 games, 20-8 over their last 28, I want to say. That's since February 1st. I thought there were some interesting quotes after the game where it doesn't really sound like the players are all too concerned about where the Lakers end up in the standings. I want to talk about the teams that are most vulnerable to drop right now. And by the way, not even drop. If you play them in a play-in or if you play them in a playoff series, I do think there's some question marks around some teams out there in the Western Conference. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that as well. So thank you for hanging out. Of course, latest in the standings. I did not get a chance to wait for the Cavs-Suns game to end, but it's 107-88 with about 7.5 minutes left to go. So I think we already have the answer there. Phoenix is going to looks like they're going to win again. So Phoenix is going to look like that they're keeping ground. But the team actually to watch out for now is the Pelicans. Pelicans might be the most vulnerable team that's out there. Okay, if first time on the channel, welcome. If you've been on the channel before, welcome back. Either way, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. If you leave a super chat, 100% going to get read. It would be greatly appreciated as well. If you don't, all good. I'm going to try to get your comments anyways. This hat, by the way, I think we've gone... How many in a row has this hat had? We lost against Indiana. I don't think I was in here for the post-game show against Indiana. I think I was down in San Diego. This hat's solid right now. This hat's got a good little winning streak going right now. So we're going to leave it as is. I probably shouldn't have even mentioned it, so maybe I already screwed it up. But we're going to leave that. Some of these other hats, like this one, I think was on a 13-game losing streak. This one, I might as well just put it in some closet. All right, let's get started. Lakers over the Wizards, 125-120. I do want to talk a little bit about the game, and then I want to talk about the road trip. So I'm going to put these two together. So it was a weird game. Lakers in the beginning at one point were down, I think it was 10 or 11. Wizards hit 5 of their first. They hit their first 5 threes. Could have been 6. I think Kuzma's foot was on the line. So it's just a little odd of how the Lakers started the game. But what they've done, and I thought what they've done this entire road trip is, okay, if if the Raptors get off to a good start, cool. By the end of the first quarter, Lakers are probably up double digits. If Memphis feels like they're in the game, by the end of the first quarter, Lakers will take control. Kind of no different in this game against the Wizards. Lakers went up by 10 by the time the first quarter was done, 39-29. I thought the Wizards were keeping it reasonable by the time we got to halftime. Again, that's not that much different than yesterday's game against Toronto. I think Lakers were up 7 today at halftime. They were up 6 yesterday against the Toronto Raptors, so both teams kind of hung around. Third quarter, Lakers blew it open. And a big part of this game, you thought by the time the third quarter was done, the Lakers were basically saying, hey, that's a wrap. We're not going to mess around. I thought the end, it was actually pretty surprising. I didn't think there was a scenario out there. I want to say Washington went on a 15-0 run, even cut it down to 2, and had a chance to take the lead with my boy Kuzma. Kuzma took a couple really bad shots, which is very Kuzma-like. I think he did the same thing when the Lakers played the Wizards. I think him and Jordan Poole were taking turns in that overtime, even in regulation when the Lakers played the Wizards at Crypto back in, what was it, think it was February 29th, about a month ago or so. They both took turns, which is kind of it's what they're known for, right? Like that's their MO. Yeah, they're probably going to take bad shots. If they take a couple good shots, expect a couple bad shots to come. But Washington went on a 15-0 run. Lakers have to bring Anthony Davis back in, basically tell Jackson Hayes, all right, this ain't working, get out of here. And Anthony Davis and Braun go on a runner themselves. They get some stops. AD gets some blocks. They get some easy buckets. Reeves eventually hits a three in the corner. LeBron would get to the basket. He'd get to the free throw line. Anthony Davis would get a couple buckets as well. So Lakers would push the lead all the way back up. That was not ideal. You didn't want to see the game in the fourth quarter be a game. But, again, I really, really – I don't want to bitch and complain too much. It's the final game of a 6-game road trip. And I don't think anybody ever thought that the Lakers were not going to win this game. I don't think anybody did. At least, in my eyes, watching that game, I never thought the game was in jeopardy. Now, did I think it got a little interesting? Yeah, I did. Did I think it was unnecessary for the game to get that close? Of course. I think every Laker fan thought it did. But they eventually handled business. I thought the end of the game was interesting, right? Where the Lakers now sub everybody out with about a minute and a half to go. And then the bench players cannot hold on to that lead. And eventually Anthony Davis and LeBron James have to come back in after a couple threes, a turnover. The game's at 5. Anthony Davis eventually gets another block. Lakers close out the game. The game ends 125-120. So a few things you weren't crazy about, but I didn't think the game was in jeopardy at any moment. I thought the Lakers were fine, and like I said, they handled business. Darvin Ham actually kind of ripped into his bench players, basically saying, yeah, it ain't ever going to happen again. I'll have personal conversations with those that I thought were just kind of disrespecting the game by coming in at the end and not feeling like they had to do anything. So that was interesting. And I don't know who he's talking about. Is he talking about Max Christie? Is he talking about Maxwell Lewis? Is he talking about Colin Castleton? It's funny because, those three guys combined played a total of 6 minutes. So I don't know who he was talking about, but clearly he wasn't happy with what he was seeing out there. Lakers will clean it up. They'll fix it. At least it happens in a game that you're going to get a W on, and I don't think the game was ever in jeopardy. Individual players, Anthony Davis is phenomenal tonight, and he's supposed to be. And the games that the Lakers have been winning have been against some really, really shitty teams. Excuse my French, but it's the truth. These teams are really bad. So Anthony Davis going up against Washington, he should have 35 points and 18 rebounds and 3 block shots and 2 steals. LeBron should have 25 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals, even though it's a second of a back-to-back. So Rui continues to be excellent from the field. Another night where he goes 9 of 12, gets 19.7 rebounds in his return to Washington. So I thought overall for the Lakers, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was the last game of a 6-game road trip, and the Lakers handled business. So you end up going 5-1 on the road trip. And that to me is the only thing that really, 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 truly stands out and that should stand out. All right, let's look at a few of you guys' comments here real quick. And then I want to talk about the road trip as a whole. Lakers were playing with their food tonight, but they still are in playoff mode. Keep that beast mode going, and they'll be fine for at least a few series. Yeah, there's a couple things happening. There's a couple things happening in the Western Conference. Listen, Lakers are really interesting all of a sudden. They are. I mean, the problem is they're still in 9th place. That you could just have one bad game in a playing tournament and the season is over. But their situation looks a hell of a lot better than some of the other teams in the play-in. And I'm talking about how dangerous they could be compared to some of those other teams. I don't want to do that right now because I have that as kind of a full segment that I'm going to get into. But playing with their food tonight, absolutely. Is that common in the NBA? Absolutely. So I don't think that's Obviously I don't think that is uncommon. I think that sometimes you have teams. I mean, the teams that they played. Let me get into a couple more of these comments. I'm going to get into it. 5-1 on the road trip. Phoenix and the Warriors are so hot right now. The Pacers' loss is going to loom large. Should finish 50-32. I'll tell you what. If it looms large, I'm not as worried about that Pacers loss. I'm just not. Indiana's a good team. They're a good team. You went 5-1 on your road trip. I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting them to go 5-1. Well, Michael Thompson was. Michael Thompson thought they'd go 5-1. He thought they would lose to Milwaukee but win the rest. He still got the record right. I think if you guys remember, I was talking here that they need to go 4-2. I thought 4-2 would be a good road trip, but 5-1. Now that I think about it, for how bad the teams were that they were playing, 5-1 is probably right, especially because they're playing so far back, right? Playing so far back. All right, let me see what else we got here. Sleeping while warming up the jabs. Dislocated my throughout my shoulder with those jabs. Throughout my shoulder. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, let's talk about the road trip. Let's just kind of talk about the road trip as a whole. Road trip as a whole. Phenomenal road trip. They set the tone with that win against the Milwaukee Bucks. The win against the Bucks was really the tone setter because you were supposed to lose that game. You were set up to lose that game. Milwaukee had everybody. You didn't have LeBron James. Couple different times during that game, you're down by 4. I'm sorry, you're down by 4. You're down by 19. What was it? About 7.5 left to go. You're down now 19. And now the question is, hey, are we taking our guys out? We got a second of a back-to-back coming up tomorrow against Memphis. We cannot lose that Memphis game. So is it time to pull the plug? And the Lakers didn't. And they hung around against the Milwaukee Bucks. They had to go 2 overtimes to win that game. And that's how you started your road trip. I thought that was very, I don't know if symbolic is the right way to put it, but I thought that was an important moment that I thought it was an important moment that they were able to do what they did in that first game and set the tone the rest of the way. I don't want to say you're playing with house money after that, but if your goal was can we split the 2 games, Indiana and Milwaukee, can we split those 2 games? And if we could split them and then just take care of business against the other teams, then the Lakers were going to be in good shape. And that's exactly what they did. You don't go 5-1 on road trips very often in the NBA. And the Lakers, who I want to say coming into this road trip was 12-20. They're now 17-21 on the road. So they flipped the script on the road. They didn't seem uncomfortable at all. Now, granted, let me also emphasize this. 4 of the games they played were literally against some of the worst teams in the NBA. Memphis is 26-50, and we know how many good players that they're missing. By the way, I think Memphis went into Milwaukee today and won. What the hell's going on in Milwaukee? Memphis is 26-50. We know how much they have struggled and how beat up and injured that they are. Brooklyn's 30-47. Toronto's 23-53. They didn't have their best player in Scotty Barnes. They've lost 15 games in a row now. And then Washington has one of the worst records in the NBA at 15-62. So might be the second worst record. They have the second worst record in the NBA. And they were missing a lot of guys too. I think they're missing a few of their players as well. So I don't want to be too impressed because it's not like they went on the road and they beat OKC, Milwaukee, or well, they did beat Milwaukee, but it's not like they beat OKC and then Miami and then Boston. It wasn't one of those road trips, but it was a business road trip, and you got to take care of the teams that were in front of you, and I thought the Lakers did it. So 5-1, incredibly impressive by the Lakers, and even though some of those teams are really, really bad, you're still vulnerable in the NBA. Tonight's a good example. We've seen the Lakers kind of be vulnerable in other games as well, so that's not uncommon to see that. Okay. By the way, let me know where you're tuning in from tonight. Let's do a little roll call. I'm just going to have those in. I'm going to sprinkle those in as we go. But feel free to let me know where you guys are tuning in from. And happy to give a shout out here as we go through the pregame show, or we go through the postgame show. For those who have never done this before, I do it in I don't do it every game, but a lot of games I do this for. Feel free to let me know where you're tuning in from, and I will give you a shout out. Doesn't matter the state, the country, the city, whatever it is. I'll try to give your location a shout out. Okay. Here's the question that I find very, very interesting right now, associated with the Lakers and kind of the situation that's going on with the Lakers. There were some quotes after the game, and I believe them when they say this, because I believe LeBron is not going to get any surprises as he continues to do what he does. He's been doing this for so long that I don't think there's really going to be a lot of surprises that comes LeBron's way. So a lot of the players after the game, I'm going to read off a quote here. I was listening to LeBron talk about it, but I'll read off the quote. Dave McMenamin put it here on X, on Twitter. LeBron James isn't spending much worrying about seeding, believing the Lakers need to keep focusing on the games ahead of them. Wherever we fall is where we fall, and wherever we got to go, if we have to go on the road, that's fine. That's fine. That's just what it came down to. I heard him. I heard Anthony Davis. I heard Darvin Ham. I pretty much heard all these guys talking about, post-game, basically saying what they need to say, which is like, look, we're not going to look at the standings, which I don't believe them. I think they are going to look at the standings. But what do the standings matter if you're not taking care of your own business? So they got 5 games left to go. Win as many of these games as you possibly can, and just where the cards fall. And I do believe them when they say that. And I think the Lakers are kind of in a unique position here. And I've heard some of the players say this before. It's more important that they're playing well right now than it is them worried about the standings. If you're playing well like the Lakers are, they feel good about themselves. They're confident about themselves. Bron was saying in the postgame show that there's continuity finally, that they know who the starting 5 is going to be. They've played now 20-plus games with that starting lineup, and they all kind of understand each other. They know when it's time to sub in, Spencer Dinwiddie's probably going to come in for D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves. Jackson Hayes is going to give AD a breather. Taurean Prince is going to come in. What I think LeBron was trying to focus in on is, I get it. In a perfect world, they're not in the play-in. In a perfect world, they find a way to avoid it. But what's as important as them avoiding the play-in is actually just playing some good basketball, and they're playing some good basketball right now. And it does seem sustainable. And look, I think they're going to get a little bit of a wake-up call. These next 3 games are going to be against good teams. So you just went from playing all these crappy teams to now you're back to playing good teams. I think the Cavs are a pretty good team. Their record would say that, even though they're not playing well against the Phoenix Suns right now. What are they down now? Or is that game done? But I think they are a pretty decent team. Not the best team out there. They already lost by 19 or 21. Golden State's obviously playing for their life. That's going to be one of the games that you have coming up. Minnesota is certainly a team that now is back number 1 in the Western Conference, so they continue to move up in the standings, even though they haven't had Karl Anthony Towns. They're going to be a handful. So Lakers are going to go back to, you're not going to, the mistakes that you were making against these crappy teams, you're not going to be able to have those mistakes and still feel like you can get a win. But I'm going to go back to listening to these players and kind of their opinion on the situation that the Lakers are in. They're less worried about the standings. They're more concerned about with how they're all playing together and if there's some continuity. And I think that part we can all agree to, that there is some continuity. Okay. Speaking of which, now that the games are done for today and the Phoenix Suns are done as well, let's take actually a quick look at the playoff standings here. So current playoff scenario, if the regular season ended today, this is where the Lakers would be. I've said this to you guys before. I have access to the standings. Nobody else does. So I'm going to share this with you guys, but you can't share it with anybody else. This is on a small website called ESPN.com. Startup company. They might make some noise in the future. Okay, here's where we are. Playoffs started today. Here's where we are. Actually, this got to be refreshed. Phoenix won. Yeah, look at Phoenix. Just jumped up. Phoenix went from 8th to 6th by winning this game today. This is what's interesting right now. Here's the Lakers. Playoffs start today. They got a game against the Golden State Warriors. They got to beat the Warriors first. And then they got to play the loser of the Pelicans and the Sacramento Kings. By the way, two teams right now that I think are in some danger, and I'm going to get to those two teams in a second, which means Phoenix avoids the play-in tournament. If you said, who do you want to play, Phoenix, New Orleans, or Sacramento? At this point, I'd like to avoid the Phoenix Suns. Just because there's injuries to the Sacramento Kings. We don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Ingram, so there's different scenarios out there. Now, if those teams were fully healthy, I'd probably have a different answer for you. So as of right now, and this was different before today started, the Lakers would have to beat the Golden State Warriors, then play the loser on the road against the Pelicans and the Sacramento Kings, and then get the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round. A lot can change in the next 5 days or in the next 5 games. I think the final regular season game is a week from Sunday. That's April 14th. A lot can change, but that's the current scenario that the Lakers are sitting in right now. So something to keep in mind. What teams are in trouble in the West? Let's wait on that. Let's go to some of your comments here for a few minutes, and then that's going to be the next topic that I get into. All right, let's see here. I have access to that website too. He's lying, everyone. Don't believe him. Guys, don't believe Luke. Believe me. Do not believe Luke. Okay. Somebody's throwing me strength of schedule out here, which I'm going to get to in just a second. Suns blow out the Cavs by 21, and Book and KD combined for 72. They got a little lucky, too. They got lucky. They got a road game against Denver. Jamal Murray didn't play. They got a road game against the Pelicans. No Ingram. They even got a road game against the Thunder without Shai Gilgeous, but they still lost that one. And now they look like they're starting to get a little bit of a groove here. Cavs are trash. Donovan Mitchell is garbage. Suho, watch yourself because they come play the Lakers on Saturday. Watch. They're all going to all of a sudden start playing better. All right. See a couple more of these. Warriors ain't a threat. I just hope we get the 7th or even just the 8th for one ticket win to the playoffs. By the way, I'm with you. I mean, I think there's such a big difference. And there's also the Golden State Warriors could be dangerous in a one-game playoff. Okay, let me do this here real quick. I want to go back to what I was just saying about what teams are in trouble in the Western Conference. What teams are in trouble in the West? So there are teams with really good records, but I don't think that record represents who they are. Let me give you an example. Who do you think is more dangerous right now? The Clippers or the Dallas Mavericks? Okay. Clippers have a better record than the Dallas Mavericks. I think the Mavs are more dangerous than the Clippers. I'm actually not buying into the Clippers at all anymore. We're talking about this in the pregame show. I think they're in some trouble, especially with, I don't know Kawhi's health. I know he didn't play in the last game against the Sacramento Kings, and they are still sitting in the number 4 spot, so they've been able to kind of hold on to that number 4 in the standings, but that's a team that I've heard Ty Lue say they're soft. I've heard Paul George say they don't have an identity. I don't know what they are. Okay, and there's a reason why I'm asking that question. Other teams that I feel like are dangerous right now or are in trouble right now. The Pelicans look like they're reeling all of a sudden. I mean, they lost Brandon Ingram. They had a shot at one point. It looked like they were threatening for the number 4 spot. Today they get blown out at home. Not blown out, but they lose to the Orlando Magic at home. Okay. They lost their last game to the Phoenix Suns, lost to Boston before that. They've had a really tough schedule as well. They lost to OKC. The only win that they have is against the Milwaukee Bucks. So just kind of bad timing for the Pelicans here. But I say that only because if Brandon Ingram doesn't come back, or if he does come back and he's not 100% healthy, they're in trouble. The Pelicans look like they're in trouble. And oh, by the way, in the standings, Lakers are only 2 games back of the Pelicans. So I know we keep looking at Phoenix and paying attention to the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they keep winning now all of a sudden. But New Orleans only has a 2-game lead on the Lakers. And the Lakers right now have a 2-1 series advantage on New Orleans. And they still get to play the Pelicans final game of the season. So that's an interesting thing that still has the opportunity to play out. Sacramento, I know they've won their last 2 games, but that's not the same team without Malik Monk. I mean, I'd rather if I think Sacramento could still be dangerous because that style clearly doesn't fit well with the Lakers. But they lost Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. That's a completely different team. Malik Monk was arguably 6th man of the year, a really good player. I think there are teams right now in the Western Conference that I feel like are vulnerable. The Clippers, I feel like, are vulnerable. The Pelicans, definitely vulnerable. The Sacramento Kings, I don't really know what's going on with the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, but I know Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous haven't played in their last couple of games. Karl Anthony Towns still out for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jamal Murray, when's he coming back for the Denver Nuggets? I'm going to actually take a look here and see if there is any update on Jamal Murray. There are some major players that are out right now. They got Jamal Murray listed as questionable for Thursday's game against the Clippers. There's some major players right now, especially Jamal Murray, that makes the Western Conference a little bit like, damn, okay, there's a lot going on right now, where the Lakers are starting to get healthy. I know Jared Vanderbilt's going to be reevaluated early next week. Darvin Ham said that in the pregame show. Gabe Vincent obviously is back for the Lake Show as well, so played another 14 minutes. So he's got 2 games now under his belt. That the Lakers are playing their best basketball right now, and they're starting to get healthier. That says a lot. And the rest of the Western Conference, you cannot really say that right now about the rest of the Western Conference. You just can't. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot going on. So I find this to be very, very interesting what's happening and what's going on with them. But the Western Conference is certainly, it's got a lot of question marks still up in the air. All right. Couple shout outs here to my people on roll call. For those who put it out here, let me make sure that Rochester, New York. Thank you very much for tuning in. Cincinnati, Ohio. In the building. Temple City, Hong Kong. Little Italy, Las Vegas. Tuning in from Australia, but I hate the flipping Clippers. You're a good man. I can already tell you're a good man. Probably pay your taxes on time. You know? You probably help an elderly lady who's trying to cross the street. I could already tell. Just with that one comment there, I could already tell the type of person you are and the character that you have. All right, Syracuse, Utah in the house. Alaska, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate that. Holland in the house. Nashville, Tennessee in the house. Thank you very much for tuning in. Listening from New York, the Bronx. Storm knocked out my power, but tuning in. Thank you, my brother. So hopefully everything's safe in your neck of the woods, but thank you. Syracuse, Utah, Milwaukee. I mentioned Athens, Greece in the house. Open invite, of course. Always get that. A lot of New York Cities here. Sydney, Australia. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Los Feliz. Thank you for being a part of the show. Monterey Park in the house. The fact that all these teams forgot how to play basketball and they're playing the teams the Lakers need to lose. All right. Let's see what else we got here. I miss anybody here? Sack in trouble. Pelicans and Kings. They are definitely in trouble. All right, see what else we got here. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out here, and I appreciate everybody putting in East LA, South Korea, San Marcos, Philippines, Peru in the house, Converse, Texas, El Centro in the house, Indonesia in the house, Lake Arrowhead, Diamond Bar, King Taco, Marana City. Thank you all for being a part of the show. Lawndale. Thank you all for being a part of the show. Orange County in the house. Okay, so went through the teams that are in trouble in the West, and I do believe that. I do believe there are some teams right now in the West that are in trouble, that are vulnerable. If you told me right now, I'd be more concerned. Warriors and the Kings. Lakers have had their issues against the Kings. I really like the matchup, Lakers against the Warriors. But I hate it's a play-in and it's one game. You know? Steph can freaking go off for 6 or 7 threes like it's nothing. That happens. It's one game. Lakers can struggle shooting from the three-point line. Next thing you know, you look up in the fourth quarter, you're down 8 with 5 minutes left to go and your season's on the line. So a lot of that comes into play as well. But for the Lakers, I think that's just a scenario that they're going to have to deal with. Now, somebody mentioned this, strength of schedule. So here's where we are on the strength of schedule left. Phoenix they still got the toughest schedule left in the NBA. So they got 6 games left, toughest schedule left in the NBA. 2 of those are against the Clippers. And to be honest with you, I don't really know what the Clippers are right now. One of those is against the Pelicans. One of those is against the Sacramento Kings. So there are going to be games that either way, Lakers can gain ground on one of these teams because they got to play each other. So that's something to keep in mind. Sacramento, 6th toughest schedule left in the NBA. Lakers now 7th toughest schedule in the NBA. Now that they got rid of all those, the Memphis, the Brooklyns, the Torontos, they got rid of all those teams, the Wizards. Lakers, their strength of schedule has moved up a lot higher now. And then the other teams to pay attention to, they're a little bit further back. So Golden State's the 19th toughest schedule. New Orleans is 23rd toughest schedule. So that's kind of where the rest of these Western Conference teams are. So I know somebody was looking at what that looks like. Quick shout out here. Underdog Fantasy, proud partner of Hoops LA, or I'm proud partner of the channel Hoops Talk. And I encourage you guys to use the code Hoops LA. I'm going to share my screen here real quick with you guys. I got some picks. I have not actually picked yet for tomorrow. For those who don't know, Underdog Fantasy it's a daily fantasy sports site. So it's one of these DFS sites. Really easy to play, fun to play. I always come here. I use Pick'ems. I play Pick'ems. I go to pregame as in games coming tomorrow, and then I click on the NBA. So these are the games tomorrow. I was looking, I'm like, which game do I want to play? There's Golden State, there's Houston. I'm going to do Sacramento, New York. One of these questions is on De'Aaron Fox. By the way, Lakers obviously need the Knicks to win tomorrow. One of these questions on De'Aaron Fox, higher or lower than 25.5 points. Knicks a good defense. I'll go lower. Jalen Brunson, an absolute baller. Higher or lower than 28.5 points. I'll go higher. Put $20 in just to kind of show you guys how this works. Chance to make 3 times my money. And I confirm it. And I'm done. That's it. That's how quick it is. Use that code HoopsLA when you sign up on Underdog Fantasy. And you get a deposit match of up to $100. For those who don't know what that means, it's very simple. Deposit match of up to $100 basically means you put in $100, they'll match your $100. You put in $50, they'll match your $50. So thank you to Underdog Fantasy, proud partner, and use that code HoopsLA. Okay, next game coming up for the Lakers. Lakers host the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday at Crypto. So they're back at Crypto now. Their last 5 remaining games for the Lakers is going to be the Cavs on Saturday. Cavs will probably play much better just because that's what usually happens when teams play the Lakers. You got Minnesota on Sunday. That's the second of a back-to-back. It's kind of funky the way the Lakers schedule is. They'll play 12:30 on Saturday, and then they'll play Sunday at 7 o'clock. 1 day off. Then you get the Golden State Warriors on Tuesday, and then they got at Memphis, at New Orleans. So that's the rest of the schedule left. Like I said, only 5 games left, so not that much left on the schedule. But for the game on Saturday, couple things to keep in mind. Usually when a team plays as bad as the Cavs played tonight, their Cavs are trying to hold on. Look what's kind of crazy. Here's the Cavs, the Magic, and the Knicks. 3, 4, 5 in the standings. All 3 of those teams have 31 losses. So Cavs are sitting at the number 3 spot, but they're only a half a game and a game in front of Orlando and New York. So they still got a lot to play for. Usually when a team loses as bad as the Cavs did tonight, they come back. There's some pride. At one point, the Cavs were really, really good on the road. Now they're struggling on the road, so whatever's going on there. But I think it's safe to say they got a good squad. Karis LeVert, good player. Evan Mobley, good player. Jared Allen, good player. Darius Garland, good player. Donovan Mitchell, great player. Max Strus, good player. They got a lot of guys. So I think the Lakers are going to get their best shot coming up on a Saturday. Lakers have already beat them. They beat them early in the season. I remember it was back in like December, November 25th. Yep, road game for the Lakers. They won at Cleveland. It was a good win. It was actually one of the better wins that the Lakers have had all year. And I remember AD had gone off. He had 32 and 13. So anytime I'm sure LeBron goes back and he plays the Cavs, that game means something to him. He didn't have a good game in Cleveland, but a lot of the other guys stepped up for the Lakers. And so something to keep in mind. Look how weird that starting lineup. I'm looking at the starting lineup back when the Lakers played the Cavs. It was Max Christie, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron, Taurean Prince, and Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves was coming off the bench. Rui was still out. Christian Wood was there. So that's a very, very random starting lineup for the Lakers. Question now is going to be, you got real competition again. Competition's back. So I think the Lakers obviously got an opportunity to play some of those teams out there that were not that great, but Cavs got something to play for. They got something to fight for. Lakers spent most of the month in March, that beginning part of March, playing a lot of good teams at home, and they held their ground. They lost to the game to the Nuggets. They lost to Sacramento, and I want to say they lost to Golden State, but they beat OKC. They beat Milwaukee. They beat Minnesota, Atlanta, Philly, Indiana. So Lakers were playing good competition in the month of March at home, and I thought did a pretty good job, but did obviously also lose some key games in that mix as well. Okay, let me spend the last couple of minutes looking at some comments here, and we could take it from there. Cavs hate Bron. They will destroy us. I think none of these players give a rat's you-know-what about LeBron's time in Cleveland. I think they don't care. I think it's fans that would care, but not him. AD dominated a Euro big. Let's effing go. Appreciate Francis, the super right there. Let's see what else we got. I had a super earlier too. It's unfortunate, 9-1, and we are still in the 9th seed. Rory, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for the super. Yeah, that's weird, huh? But listen, you know what's kind of crazy? I just got this feeling that there's still a good chance they could get out of 9. I know there's not a lot of games left. I know it means Lakers got to probably go 5-1 again. And if they go 5-1, then yes, you're probably right. I think they end up getting out. But that is crazy. That's a compliment to the Western Conference. It's a compliment to how many good teams are out there. They're hanging around. They're playing well. It also highlights the Lakers digging themselves a hole. That's why all these games are so important. It doesn't matter if that game's in November, December, January. A game or two can cost you. We see it every single year. It also says that there's some really, really bad teams in the West that everybody keeps beating up on. Utah, Memphis, Portland, and San Antonio. And also some really, really bad teams in the Eastern Conference that teams are beating up on as well. Not losing to Cleveland. Cavs have Garland, Mobley, and Allen, and a bunch of trash. You forgot Donovan Mitchell, my brother. That's not trash. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Lakers in a 7-game set, but what I'm saying is They just got to, all they're trying to do is win one game. Anyone can win one game. You're too optimistic. Don't get crushed by the avalanche of disappointment when Steph goes for 50 in the playing game and we're knocked out. Hey, if that happens, then the Lakers only have themselves to blame, right? Then don't be in the playing tournament. But I think you would agree that the Lakers match up really well against the Warriors. Anything can happen in one game, but I take my chances against the Warriors. I take my chances really against any of those teams in the play-in. The problem is all you have to do is have one bad night. The season's over. Lakers own Steph, beat him in the play and ended his Western Conference playoff streak. Beat him last year in the playoffs. In the playoffs too. I think what 12 Hoops is trying to say is that anyone can go off for a game. That part I agree with. Anyone can go off in a game. But the Lakers match up against the Warriors, that's not a good matchup for the Warriors. They just got too much size. Too much size, strength, length, the whole thing. But anyone can lose in one game. Okay, Laker fans. That's all we got tonight. 40 minutes plus. Got my radio show tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow I will be on Spectrum Sportsnet. So tomorrow on TV, live at 7. So if you guys want to see me on TV tomorrow, after I'm done with my radio show in the morning, I'll be doing that with Travis, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then 7 o'clock, we'll be on Spectrum doing some TV. So if you guys get a chance to tune into that, please do so. We're talking more Lakers basketball and going from there. So appreciate it, Lake fans. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great night. See you guys Saturday. Saturday after the Lakers take on the Cavs. Sammy will be putting up a video on Friday previewing the Lakers and the Cleveland Cavaliers, so please keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Lake fans. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night.